Hi there, good afternoon. Just thought I'd do a video update just to put people in the picture on what's been going on with me really over the last few weeks. I'm really now getting into counselling, and I'm finding that talking therapy is really therapeutic and help. I don't know about others, but I always thought that I was a pretty open person anyway and was able to just sort of tell people what was on my mind or what bothered me. But I'm finding out new things about myself that I didn't realise, and one of them is, I think, as a child, separation anxiety. That may sound odd, how did you not know, or whatever, but the anxiety as it is for me at the moment, being as high as it is, when I've been thinking of certain situations in my past and working through counselling and seeing a pattern of feelings, of thoughts, and the overall sort of end picture. What I mean by that is, I'm going to give you two examples. The first example is I was poorly when I was 10 years old, 1984, and I had pains in my head and I was sick. I remember going to hospital, and I remember that I stayed in hospital, and I remember the feelings of upset, tears, being really frightened, what was happening to me, but I can't remember the actual, visualise the actual hospital or remember anything about the ward or anything like that. I can remember coming out of hospital and going to my grandma's. I can remember her giving me a pair of gold sleeper earrings, and I can also remember the outpatient's appointment afterwards, which was where I was sat with my mum, and my mum was talking to another lady whose son was waiting on his outpatient's appointment, and I remember the conversation being as that he had a brain tumour and they didn't know how long he had left to live. So I can remember stuff like that. Another example that I'm going to give you is I can remember being stood in my bedroom, looking outside, feeling really panicky and not being able to swallow. Again, I must have been under the age of 14. The other example that I can give you is going swimming with a friend, and mum dropping us off. We went swimming, and then feeling out of my depth, panicky, dizzy, and being taken obviously out of the swimming baths. And I had it in my head that I did go to hospital, but my mum couldn't remember this. But I have since found out through my friend, who's moved away now, that yes, we did go into hospital via ambulance. When I'm working through my anxieties now, I can see in each one of those situations that it was anxiety that I'd experienced as a child, and the end result was the fear of being taken away from my parents, my mum and dad. And I still have that fear to this day, at age 40, that I worry to death about the fact that my mum and dad will not be here anymore, and how will I cope, or I don't want to think how I would cope with that scenario. I know everybody's different, but it sort of all links into me, as that, I experienced anxiety as well as a child, but it was never discussed. It was never, made any big deal out of or anything like that. Was that a good thing, a bad thing? I don't know. With regards to my son, as most of you might have picked up, I have a 14-year-old son who's on the autistic spectrum. I don't think I've mentioned this actually on video, so I'll just give you a quick brief. Basically, Callum is 14, he was 14 last June, and he got a diagnosis of atypical autism back just before he entered high school. I always knew that there was something different about him, and it was the sensory things, like the not being able to want to wear clothes with labels in, or not liking the feel of a toothbrush, or those sort of things. Very clever, very bright, he could recite the alphabet at such a young age. Loads of things like that that children do, but he was just that little bit brighter in that respect. Eventually, you know, got a diagnosis. It took me about 4 years to get that diagnosis in place. And, you know, he then moved up into high school. I've had no help with regards to Callum on the autistic spectrum at all, apart from some groups that I have been to. And without putting it in and sounding in an awful way, the whole spectrum, is massive, and no two children are alike on it. So you might get some children that you can visually see, yes, you know that they are on the autistic spectrum. They may be non-verbal, they may flap, they may do things that you can see, oh, that there's clearly, you know, something that this child has a diagnosis of. But with Callum, you can't see that. And Callum struggles with his emotions and he doesn't know how to express them properly. So, for instance, you know, he can lose his patience over something, and I can tell when he goes into a meltdown because his eyes kind of glaze over and he'll flip out, and then some damage will be done in the house. So I've had I've had a remote control launched through my TV. I've had a broken remote controller for a game station. I've had a broken iPhone, things, just damaging things, and he doesn't know where to channel that anger and aggression, if you like, and it's really hard to see your child like that. And I've asked and asked and asked. I even went down to social services and said, look, you know, he needs help, you know, with his anger and his aggression, and I need help with that because he's not dealing with it correctly. I've gone to child adolescent mental health services to be just told to go back, that they try and get a school learning mentor in place again for him, which that didn't work last time. I've gone to the local family services. They've done work with me with parenting manuals, and it can be really, really challenging because Callum knows that there is some diagnosis somewhere, but he wants to be like any other 14-year-old child, and that's fine. Now, socially, he's okay. You know, he's got friends, he can go out, and he's fine to some degree with that. And at the moment, obviously, he's developing hormones. You know, he's becoming from this little boy into this young man. My separation anxiety that I think that I went through, I think has now resurfaced. And the reason why I think that my anxiety is at a height and it's resurfaced is because up until the age of 12, Callum had real difficulty settling down, going into bed, and I did everything, the reading stories, the putting him to bed, coming down, going back, going down, coming back. It was really hard for me being alone on my own, working at the time, you know, coming home, trying to get everything sorted, get him into a bedtime routine. And then sort of up until the age of 12, he was sleeping in the bed with me. Now he's 14 and he wouldn't even dream of coming nowhere near my bed at this moment in time. And I don't know whether the struggling with him going so dependent, and in such a short space of time, which obviously teenagers, you know, do, has set off my separation anxiety, and it's all tying back in together. I don't know, and these are things that I'm working through at the moment. How are you supposed to feel? I don't know. It's kind of blocking things out. Are they blocked out for a reason? Am I trying too hard to remember something that isn't there? Why do I feel anxious about leaving my family? All these things, and those are things that I'm trying to work through at the moment. It might not sound as serious as some other people that are going through mental health issues. We all have our own issues. We're all individual and we all deal with them in a different kind of way. You know, nobody should ever be sort of dissed because of what they're going through, because it matters. Whatever they're going through matters to them. Just taking time out, really, just to speak to them, not make them feel stupid, get them to open up a little bit, and this is what talking therapies I think, are all about. So I'm benefiting from it at the moment. Got some more sessions, you know, to go. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can move in the right direction. If there's anybody out there that this can relate to, or, you know, separation or anything like that, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know, you know, to know more and about how you deal with it and how things help you. At the end of the day, that's, you know, that is what we're all here, you know, here for. On Anxiety United is to encourage and support one another. So yeah, dinner time. Speak later.